Hello and welcome to this VTC Quick Start course on creating responsive websites using Dreamweaver CS6. During this course, we'll look at how to create a website using the integrated tools that come with Dreamweaver CS6, such as fluid grids. And then later, we'll look at using third-party extensions to create elegant, responsive designs with ease. I'll start by talking initially about responsive websites and what the terms actually mean and why it's become so prevalent in today's web design landscape. First though, I'll step back and explain the situation that existed prior to tools being developed to facilitate the construction of websites that respond to the end user's browser size. And when I'm talking about browser size, I'm not only talking about desktop PC size. I'm also referring to the explosion in web browsing habits moving to portable devices such as iPhones and iPads, etc. And really that's the clue to why responsive design became such an issue for the mobile user, i.e. they had smaller screens on which to view a website. Well, initially before tablets became so prevalent. Consequently, the end user, using a smartphone, ended up having to pinch and squint, looking at the exact same website designed for a PC browser size of around 1,000 pixels in the width. Now, I have a couple of clients who have no interest in updating their websites to reflect the demands of everyday users. They argue that they've spent enough on a PC site already and don't see why they should spend more money on what they deem to be as inferior because it doesn't contain the information in the way that they want it presented. Now, I know I can't really complain too much because I've not updated my website to be a responsive design. There's always too much else to do, so maybe that should be my next challenge. Anyway, what will this VTC Quick Start course cover? First of all, I'm going to assume you have some knowledge of Dreamweaver and how to navigate your way around its user interface. This will mean I can concentrate on looking at how to create a responsive web design using a fluid grid template provided by Adobe and integrated into Dreamweaver CS6. As the course progresses, we'll also look at using third-party extensions to help build an HTML5, CSS3 compliant website that will take out the hard work of hand-coding every aspect of a site from scratch. Now, a quick glance at the internet will show you that there are a number of third-party companies out there that provide responsive website tools. Now, you might be wondering why we need to bother with a responsive website. Well, essentially, a modern website will be built around columns, and these columns contain the content for the site. A problem arises, though, with a non-responsive site, that once the browser width reduced, these columns didn't have any way of automatically collapsing from 4 columns in the width, for example, to 2 columns, and then even further down to 1 column in the width when viewed on a mobile phone. What a responsive website has engineered into it, shall we say, is for all the contained columns a means of collapsing from 4 down to 1 as necessary when viewing the exact same site on an iPhone or such like. To be able to implement an expanding or reducing width site, we need to be aware of 2 web design concepts. These are fluid grids, as I've mentioned already, and something called media queries. To an extent, we also need to consider a third thing too, and that is having our images scalable so that they resize dependent on the web browser and the device being used to see the actual site. So hopefully then now you'll understand that it's difficult to have a complete responsive website that responds to all user viewing experiences without connecting fluid grids and media queries together. So, the opening of this VTC Quick Start course will cover both terms and how they are intertwined in the design stage. I think the term fluid grid considerably indicates what it actually is, how it works, and what's expected of it. I mean, it is a grid-based template that adjusts to a screen width dictated by parameters we decide. It's fluid, and therefore its width responds accordingly to the browser's size. The term media queries, on the other hand, is not such a definition giveaway. Nevertheless, it's a component of your development that does need to be considered. As a working definition, a media query is a CSS3 component that instructs the browser to respond in a certain way. i.e. a media query will force the website to display in a certain way dependent on browser size, and therefore will be linked to CSS rules or style sheets. Like me, I'd imagine that you would like all your website jobs to be very well paid, coming in at over £1,000 a time, to reflect all the skill, time and effort that you put in to complete a bespoke design. However, in the real world, certainly in today's economic climate, it's more than likely that you have clients who want exactly what I've just described, a bespoke website, but only want to pay you the grotty side of £1,000, somewhere between £100 and perhaps £300. And of course they'd prefer if you paid them. Now, even though this seems like a nightmare, I'm quite happy not chasing large corporations for £10,000 websites, preferring to focus on the lower end market because you can get 2 of these a week. An issue only arises if the client insists on a 100% bespoke site that they've drawn out on a scrap of paper. So my only rule is, with these clients, is the site will take 7 days, and the design is largely left to me. And after that 7 days I sign it off to the client. After that it's down to them to use a content management system of their choice. This way, I avoid having to amend a cheap £100 site for 6 months or so until they're happy. So why do I bring all this up? Well, it's so I can tell you about third-party extensions that you can buy to run from within Dreamweaver CS6 that at least wireframe the site for you, saving you days of time and allowing a full wireframe or better to be built in minutes rather than days. Incidentally, I don't know if you know, VTC do produce a wireframe program of their own called iPlots. Just head over to iPlots.com to learn more about it. Okay, so essentially that's what this Quick Start course is going to cover. We're going to talk about the problems of existing websites, how we solve this by building a site from the ground up using a fluid grid, and we'll move on to look at using extensions to accelerate the website building process.